Hey there guys, it's Soul and we are back with some more Horrific Vision commentary. We're continuing our series of videos where I take a class that I'm not very familiar with and then gear it up with only outdoor and Horrific Vision content and then complete a 5-chest run. Today we're back in good old Orgrimmar with one of my characters that is usually used for selling the crap on my account, which is my Fury Warrior. He's sporting an item level of 433, with 2 corruption effects, a level 2 tentacle, and a level 1 Twilight Devastation. His cloak level was rank 10, so 50% sanity resistance. His neck level is 74, and he's rocking a Breath of the Dying rank 3 as his main essence, with a rank 3 condensed life force and Crucible of Flame. The Breath and the life force, by the way, were bought with Echoes of Nyalotha. For talents, he's running Endless Rage, Impending Victory, Sudden Death, Warpaint, Carnage, Dragon Roar, and Anger Management. For research, he's almost at the bottom of the tree, so he's about 2 points away from getting Gift of the Titans, but he's also spec'd for group play, meaning that, just like some of my other tunes, he's missing that 15% damage buff and the extra life, so and finally, he has Ghastly Goulash, and he's armed with cooldown pots and kebabs. So let's get started, and the footage starts kind of here. There was kind of an error with the recording, so I apologize, but I kick it off really quick by taking out the shaman, and then now I'm here taking on the 2 bouncers. I'm not very good on my warrior. I should just say this right now. So you're going to see a lot of rage capping and missed buttons and cooldowns that I forget to hit and so on and so forth. So, well, that's just kind of how it goes. I'm still kind of trying to get used to the whole mashy nature of this class. So there I got horrified, unfortunately, which is just awful, awful, awful. Although I did spec away from having that single target stun in favor of something else that really has, like, there's really no point. I really should have spec to get that single target stun. That would be helpful throughout this area, but for the most part I just did fine here. So I'm going for the shaman once again, making sure to try to take it out before it spawns that ridiculous totem that I hate oh so much. Now I hate the totem more than the tentacle, because now at least I can handle the tentacles just fine by, for the most part, just standing on them. Now I'm going to circle back really quick and go over to the hut here so I can take a look at what is the good potion, or I'm sorry, what is the bad potion, which is purple. So I'm going to be looking out for a black vial. That's going to be what restores my 100 sanity. At any rate, it's now time to get started, and I could pop a kebab like right here, just to get myself caught up a little bit more, but I opted not to, or I just kind of forgot about it. I throw a quick whirlwind to get those little Voidwalker marshmallow guys, and I start engaging with this guy. Now, Breath of the Dying turned out to be like really powerful throughout this run, and it's something that I definitely recommend having. Because remember, we're being really specific on trying to get items or traits, or basically speccing myself for Horrific Visions and not raids or dungeons, which is a bit more similar to what you need here. So as you can see, these marshmallow dudes, they didn't aggro. Even though I whirlwinded them pretty hard, I thought. They ended up not coming. They just stuck with Zakhan and his cronies. So this amounted to a little bit of lost time, unfortunately. So I recommend for anyone, just make sure you hit it with a fairly hard-hitting attack. I think a Dragon Roar definitely would have done the job here. But then here I am, just kind of being a goofball about it. But, oh well. I only made a number of attempts at doing a 5-chest on even Orgrimmar on this character. Anyway, we're proceeding over, and we're going for this big marshmallow guy, the Voidwalker, because we want to interrupt the Void buffet. Interrupting that will allow these mental assaults to not do a whole lot of damage at all, because each stack of the Void buffet will make me take double shadow damage. So that's pretty extreme, so you want to be very, very careful of that. With those ads gone, thank you, Tentacle. We're just going to go back and take care of these totems really quick. And we're dealing with hot foot, so I'm trying my best to manage the jumps by moving a little bit more carefully. Walking backwards and making it go off doesn't exactly help. Your best bet for hot foot is to just position yourself in a good way, so that way the leaps aren't so bad. You can see I skipped one of those packs right there just by running around this bridge area. Sometimes you need to tuck through a small area where you gotta run through some trees. But in this case, I was able to just kind of sidestep him. No biggie. There's that darn tentacle in the middle of Hotfoot, which is always great. Do try to avoid that whenever possible, although I know it's really, really hard to do. At any rate, you just take care of the shaman really quick and then move on to the next thing. I'm checking for vials. I'm not seeing anything, so let's move on to the next pack. First by taking out the caster, and then the 2 berserkers, which really shouldn't be like that big of a deal here. So you'll notice here, like I killed that last mob with my Breath of the Dying. So you can kind of see that 30-second buff where my next Breath of the Dying is going to do double the damage. And you're going to see that in action when I encounter this guy here. So he has about 700,000 life. And you see there, boom, he just got hit with about 230,000 life, which is insane. It just ripped through him. So good use of Breath of the Dying is not exactly critical to your success here, but it is extremely helpful. You saw how I just cut through that guy, which was awesome. Not bad for a fairly low item level. Well, low item level, but I am running a level 74 neck. So it is going to be a pretty powerful neck. And keep in mind, with knowledge and everything, you're going to get your neck caught up extremely fast if you're rolling alts these days. So do that if you want to, entertain yourself while you're stuck where you're at. So I'm having a kebab here while I'm in this corrupted area right before I go into the right before I go into the lost area, because inside the lost area we deal with haunting shadows, and with haunting shadows you get that random fear if you happen to be standing inside a circle, and you definitely don't want to eat a kebab while just before that circle appears, otherwise you'll miss out on your food. So I'm taking on this pack a little bit slowly. It's actually been a while since I've even attempted to do a 5 chest here in Orgrimmar. Or if I did. I'm still trying to remember and I'm not quite sure. But I'm taking it slow at first, taking on these 3 mobs, just because I'm not quite sure like how bad the damage is going to be. I'm at a little bit less than 1/4 of my sanity left, and this is after having 2 kebabs, but I have not used any orbs yet. So I opt to go for the Dominator here. Although actually Gaera goes for it first. Sure, why not? And I happen to get feared by the circle, which is never good. You definitely don't want to get hit by that circle fear or the haunting shadows when you're in a precarious position like this. You can see right here in just a moment, you're going to see a Twilight Devastation get dangerously close to that mob over there. And that would have been game over for me if I got hit by it. So I'm popping my first orb. I'm trying to reach over to see if I can get aggro on those guys. Unfortunately, it doesn't keep, but oh well. I just go for the big guy, use my Dragon Roar to get some good AoE out, and otherwise cleave these guys down without very much trouble at all. So we're at full sanity. We're looking pretty good. But of course, you don't want to be all that reckless either. So at that point, I was kind of thinking, okay, maybe I should go upstairs and take out the other pack there, so that way I'm not wasting too much sanity. But I figured that I may get hit or clipped 1 or 2 times by this mob's attacks, and so I wouldn't be really losing all that much by going for this guy. So I do kill it, and I do get my full 200 sanity back. Yep, whoopee. And now we're going to take a slightly risky pull, which is fairly possible at this level. I am going to have to deal with 3 whopping tentacles, and it can be a little bit hard dealing with these. They are going to burrow if I end up moving outside of their melee range, and their hitbox is very small, or at least that range where they end up burrowing is a really small radius. So I'm doing my best to not move. Of course, I have to deal with haunting shadows, which is what I have to deal with right there. Until the tentacles are like, oh, time to go, time to reposition. And so here they are, they come back up. And I get right back into melee range to make sure that they do not disappear. Funny how in previous runs I talk about how much I hate the tentacle and how it keeps disappearing, and well, it's thanks to you folks that that you told me exactly how to deal with it, so I'm grateful for that one. So dealing with this guy isn't a huge deal. It's just a matter of avoiding the haunting shadows, but for the most part, you're going to be on the move enough that you're not going to worry. You're not going to worry about getting caught in this guy's explosive leap. So I'm waiting for this guy's HP to get a little bit lower before I use my Breath of the Dying, which does some incredible damage. That way I can immediately engage this boss. Pop stuff, there you go, I popped another Breath of the Dying, so I pretty much take off about 20-something% of his life within the first couple of seconds, which is great. Absolutely great. I save my Dragon Roar for when the ads come out, and otherwise I just cleave, making sure to sidestep his ground effects and to stay inside of his hitbox to avoid that ring of black orb stuff. So down he goes. I am at about 3/4 sanity. I think I was double checking my damage just to see how I was doing, but who cares? I killed it. That's what's most important, right? So back we go, back to Orgrimmar, or at least the main area of Orgrimmar, as I like to call it. Sorry. And now it's time to go to the other side. We're at 2/3 sanity, 2 orbs left. We're looking pretty darn healthy. Haven't seen any vials, but that's okay. So we're dealing with promised power here and not desynchronized, so at least, at the very least, navigating through here is fairly quick. Of course, by dealing with promised power, I'm dealing reduced damage. So I already know in my head that when it comes time to take on Thrall, it shouldn't be terribly difficult, but I am going to be doing 10% reduced damage for pretty much like 85 to 90% of the fight. And that was my phone. Sorry about that. So I'm eating the kebab right now, and I'm going to reach over and put my phone on silent. So here we go. I'll go ahead and take on the tentacle right here. Again, standing still. I'm just making sure that it doesn't retreat. That way I'm wasting less time. Once these guys are out, I'll go for this next elite. So I've been somewhat liberal about popping my cooldown potions wherever I feel like it's needed, but at least after a while I notice, hey, you know what, I'm doing some pretty good damage. So there are a lot of cases where I'll pop it and the mob will die off fairly quickly, and so I'll be kind of wasting stuff, and well, I've been blowing through a lot of materials and I feel like I want to save a little bit of money. You might have seen earlier that the Orb of Annihilation, at one point, it stood perfectly still. So it was like a weird bouncy ball. It was just kind of bouncing in place, and that was the result of me just standing right on top of it when it first spawned. So that's a weird effect that you might want to be a little bit careful of. Anyway, with the Elite dead, I go straight for this Dominator here. It's the most threatening mob out of any of these. And then I just kind of F off to the rest of them, go straight for the Tentacle, stay in place so I can engage it directly as much as I can, pop a Dragon Roar for some additional AoE, it goes down, and then I'll start cleaning up these ads here. So I'm a little bit under half sanity, still looking pretty good. I'm just trying to backtrack a little bit so I can start busting open doors. And this guy, that big guy, happened to be a bit more resilient than normal. As a reminder, I'm running a level 2 Tentacle and only a level 1 Twilight Devastation. It still does great damage, but not nearly as great as, say, a very geared tank with a lot of HP. And it's only a level 1 TD. So I pull out the mob as usual, and then go for the Dominator, also as usual. Just make sure to switch back to the main mob because this one has more life. Cleave all that stuff down. And it's kind of fascinating. As a non-warrior person, it feels a little bit frustrating where I feel like, okay, cool, I'm trying to do some heavy cleave, I want a whirlwind, and I want to just make sure that I don't target a low health mob, because otherwise it feels like I guess I am losing damage because the rampage doesn't complete, it doesn't cleave off to anyone, and that's a DPS loss. So it's pretty fascinating how the warrior dynamic sort of changes a little bit. For a paladin, it's definitely a lot different. I would typically go for a high health target, so that way I don't have to switch targets. And by the way, I'm having a kebab here. But yeah, it's pretty fascinating. So even with low sanity, I decided, you know what, I'll just YOLO this and just kind of go for it. I saved my Breath of the Dying for a little bit for right when he's about to use his bubble, but I don't know, I think I just got impatient and just used it, but I just blew him up. He melted. He went down extremely fast, which was definitely to my benefit, because I was running pretty low on sanity, and I don't have an extra life, as a reminder. So Hotfoot kind of launched me in there, but let's move on. Get Misha. I do a little heroic throw to just to pull it over, because my Breath of the Dying is still on cooldown. And from here, it's kind of a race. Kind of. I mean, Misha's not so bad, but I just want to be careful because I am pretty low on sanity. She's going to get me some sanity back, but you never want to be complacent. There, I just took a 15 sanity hits, which is not a big deal, but you just got to be careful. Then, of course, I've got to take care of these mobs here, and from there, we'll be able to move on with our beautiful skip, which so far still hasn't been fixed. I have no idea if Blizzard ever plans on fixing it. I know nothing about it, but here we go. So my advice with going through here is to try to not jump when you're starting the climb. That way it feels a little bit smoother when you're going back up. And you can just, if you want, if you can get on an Orgrimmar, a Horde character, and just kind of practice that run, just to make sure that you don't fall over. That'd be the worst, just dying out in the cuts like that. So I pop my orb and pull Rexar. I pop some cooldowns, but not everything, because my intention here is to take out one boar at a time, take it really careful. So one went down already. At 60 some odd percent, that's when the next boar comes out, and then at 50%, that's when the remaining two will come out just about simultaneously. So there we go. Here they are. So I pop some more cooldowns, I pop my Dragon Roar, and just go to town on these guys. And with them gone, it's just me and him and a bunch of Shaw. So, just gotta make sure to be a little bit careful. And down he goes. Pretty much full sanity bar. Rexar is done smooth, very, very smoothly. And then I gotta take on this pack, which hits surprisingly hard. You want to be very careful with this pack, because all of a sudden I just dip down to about 60% life. Goulash definitely takes it home for me, but you just want to be careful of this big guy's attacks, especially that breath. And then especially because the venom will eventually cause a stun. So down that one goes, and his buddies are close behind him. And off we go. So we're at about 4/5 sanity. We have one orb left. We're pretty good. And I'm feeling pretty good about this one. Earlier, I was attempting to do runs without even powering up my Heart of Azeroth. I never unlocked traits. The additional traits or slots for essences, which was just kind of cocky of me. I think that's in hindsight, that's pretty arrogant. You know, the whole point of this exercise isn't to flex or anything. It's just to prove a point that we can do this without the need of having to super optimize your gear or having to farm certain content, requiring a certain kind of grind. Now, keep in mind that I did use echoes to get some pretty powerful essences, notably Breath of the Dying. That's definitely what took it home. And that's probably going to be what the trend is going forward with a bunch of my other characters, just because Breath is incredibly useful for making quick work of low health mobs. So anyway, we're fighting Thrall. It's kind of, I'm not really talking about the Thrall fight because it's pretty trivial at this point. You just want to make sure that you nuke those two boars down very quickly, and from there it's just a one-on-one fight. Me and Thrall and my two crazy looking club-like blue weapons, but it's still okay. You just got to be careful, work on the muscle memory, and just mash the buttons and hope that you're pressing the right ones. That's kind of how I've been approaching this class for the most part. I mean, it's fun. Playing as Fury has been pretty entertaining for me. It's a nice and visceral and in-your-face sort of spec. And And it plays well here in the case of Horrific Visions, where you're just kind of rampaging through and mowing down a bunch of mobs and moving on and jumping to the next thing. But here we go. Completed my first 5 chest run of Orgrimmar, which felt pretty awesome. Now I just got to take this guy to Stormwind, and this guy can be put on the shelf, and we can move on to more characters. As for what I got, though, well, it was kind of disappointed. I ended up getting, I believe, a belt. There it is. There's a belt that, upon taking damage, it gives me a chance to increase my versatility by a significant amount. Whoop-de-doo. So that's going to be it for me. I hope that this was helpful in some way, shape, or form. If you have questions or comments, please leave them below. And otherwise, we'll see you for the next clear. Until then, stay safe, stay happy, and stay breezy.